I've come from a very long background in local government. I think over the last, before starting out in consultancy, LK Advisory about 6 years ago, I spent around 25 years in local government working across, at last count, 19 different local governments across the state, from what were quite literally the smallest local governments by kind of population, but the largest in size out in the far-flung reaches of our outback and wheat belt, compared to highly dense and diverse inner city and outer metro growth councils. So both I'm a town planner by trade. Please don't hold that against me. I understand there's a lot of ED professionals in the room. So look, sorry on behalf of all of us. But look, over that period of local government, working as a planner at the coalface, working as a planning director, as a CEO, and then one of my last stints in local government was being appointed by the state government to be one of the 3 commissioners to run the city of Perth when the previous council was dismissed for a whole host of reasons that I won't bore you with today. So it's fair to say local government's fairly close to my heart. Professionally, we've got a very close affiliation with local governments and local government work across WA, or across Australia rather. All of the staff within our team are ex-local government, and we all have a minimum of anywhere from kind of 12 to, in my case, like almost 30 years experience working in and with local government. So in our company at present, LK Advisory, we focus on probably 5 core areas of planning, policy, governance, strategy, and organisational and process improvement and performance. And we deploy those skills to local governments, state government agencies, as well as private sector clients, ranging from mining sector to service delivery agencies. So with that spiel out of the way, what's this all about? So in 2019, our Small Business Commissioner engaged us to design and deliver a small business friendly approvals program that could be rolled out to all local governments across the state, of which we have 137. I can't recall at last count how many local governments exist in Queensland, but it's significantly less than 137, and I think for good reason. 77. 77, well, there we go. Bingo, Luke, come up and get your prize. So the fundamental objective of that program and the challenge put to us by the Commissioner was this: make it easier to start, operate and grow a small business in Western Australia, particularly focused on making life easier when you're interacting with a local government. So yeah, as you all know, that's no small task. Like, okay, challenge accepted. So what did we do? So I'm going to run through over the series of these slides, what we did, how we did it, what we found and how it went, in the hope that that then reveals a couple of key hints, tips, tricks and takeaways that you'll be able to administer and maybe apply or reconfigure in the work that you do every day. Basically give you some launch code so you can have a really good argument with the planners and all of the other regulatory officers who tend to find step on the hose when it comes to just making stuff happen. So before we get into all of the other slides, I'd love for this to be as interactive as possible. I have no problem at all if anyone wants to shout out questions, criticisms, comments, anything that you've got. Share your experiences as we go. And if there's anything that you think might be transferable or relatable back into your organisation or to a Queensland context, then feel free to either raise that with me or we can share it with the room and start to work through some of that. My main goal today is to ensure, firstly, that no one leaves or falls asleep. It's always a tough gig after a long day of workshops, straight after afternoon tea, when the finish line looks like drinks at 5. Again, you know, no pressure, but I know what you're feeling. So can I just ask, before we get into it, is everyone here an ED professional, or have we got some people with other disciplines and backgrounds in the room, or online rather, I should say? Yes. Town planning. Oh, sorry to hear. That's great. Yes, sorry. And up the back.
So yeah, media and communication, small town, so do lots of hats.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Community development.
Great. Community development. Anyone else? So we got planning, community development, comms and marketing. Okay, great. But isn't it interesting how often the ED message and narrative becomes about kind of comms and marketing and support and programming? So yeah, that's great. Any other takers? That's it. Yes.
Former small business owner.
Oh, wow. Well, that's very, very important. And it's quite interesting because a lot of the work that we still do today, or that we uncovered through the Small Business Friendly Approvals program in Western Australia, identified this complete chasm between the level of knowledge and awareness and empathy that regulatory staff have. And it's not singling out local government, because there's in Western Australia, there's things like liquor licensing, there's other certifications and approvals you have to get before you can start trading. And so it's multiplied, not just across local governments, but those pain points exist through all of those government interactions that small businesses are forced to basically partner with. So it's great to have someone from a small business background that knows that. I know from some work that we previously did with Townsville City Council, Ben, one of the ED leads there, also came from a small business background, which I think gave him just an added edge when it came to speaking to businesses and on behalf of the business community within that local government. So what we did is initially we developed and delivered 2 pilot projects for streamlining the approvals process and making it easier for small businesses to do business with local government. The 2 pilot projects were, as said, very bespoke. We designed them to try and create a methodology that was going to be repeatable, either by us or by the SBDC, or by local governments themselves, or by other consultants. So that was our scope of work. That pilot project was delivered with 2 local governments, the cities of Stirling and the city of Canning. They're 2 of Perth's largest local governments. Between the 2 of them, they comprise more than 32,000 small businesses, so more than 32,000 businesses with up to 19 employees. Combined, those small businesses across those 2 local governments employ around 88,000 staff, and they deliver more than $6 million annually to the Perth economy. So they make a very big impact when we combine the small business sector as a cohort. So as a consequence, it's a really important client base for each of those local governments to actually make sure that they enable and facilitate the work that they do as best as possible. The SBDC also said to us something similar that I was discussing with Sharon earlier, and that is that we've only got our normal annual budget allocation for programs and initiatives and documents and brochures and all of the other suite of offerings that we provide to the small business community. We don't have any more money, so we really need this project run really well to provide a proof of concept so that we can put that together in the form of a business case to bid for more money so that we get Treasury to invest in this for the long term, so that we can then roll this project out, if it's successful, across many other local governments in the state. And as I mentioned a couple of times already, it needed to be bespoke and calibrated. This wasn't going to work as a off-the-shelf, one-size-fits-all approach. And even though we were talking about local governments that were fairly typical of each other within the Perth metropolitan area, they each had their own nuances and idiosyncrasies. And so I think even from my experience, having worked at 19 of them across our state, every single one of them is different, and I'm sure everyone in the room has worked at or had encounters with many more local governments than just the one that you work with at the moment. So that's the context and the background in terms of what we were asked to do. How we did it then is that, as Luke said, sorry for these catchphrases. I didn't want to put things up like Scrum and Sprint as well, because that's going to be even more frustrating. So co-designed and human-centered. Really, all we meant by that was we went riding into town on our white horse in a shiny suit of armour, saying, here are all your solutions. This is everything that you need to do to make life easier for small business. Trust us, we know, because we're just so good. Obviously we are, but that's not the approach that we took. So we wanted to make sure that we really just assisted with shining a light on pinch points with the team that was nominated by each local government. And we facilitated conversations, we asked challenging questions, we made people feel really awkward and uncomfortable, like they didn't want us there. So that's how we knew we were doing our job effectively. And by human-centered, all I mean is that it just took a very customer-centric approach. If you think about websites that you find very easy to interact with, they are nothing like local government, because you don't automatically know where to look. it's not very intuitive. The answers that you get are not always clear. And then someone will say, oh yeah, but by the way, you also have to look here and do that and do something else. So if I want to buy a car from car sales and I want to do sifting and sorting and put in different search parameters and everything else, it gives me an answer. It's very clear. Same if I want to buy a house. But nowadays it's gotten to a point where it's easier for anyone in the room to go and get a loan to buy a home or a couple of $1 million to invest in other things than it sometimes is to just engage with the local government to get the approvals you need to get your idea up and running. So we want to make sure that front of mind was how do our processes impact customers? It's great to see Nari here. Hi, Nari from Townsville.
Hello.
And so look, I think Nari will no doubt be able to touch on some of this in her presentation at the conference tomorrow about the experience that was identified in working with the project team at Townsville City Council, and the same was our experience back in WA, in helping change their mindsets and their point of view to actually give more regard to, yes, but how does this impact small businesses? What does it mean for them? Put yourself in their shoes. Don't look at it from administrative convenience or business as usual, which is often a safe place for local government planners in particular, right? Customer journey mapping, because what we wanted to do is to define very precisely what are your processes for this. So if I'm a small business and I've got an idea, and it doesn't have to be that Len's got a top notch, sits on a milk crate and loves making soy lattes all day. The business doesn't need to be food and bev. It could be anything. I might be a manufacturing business. I might be a welder who operates from my back shed at home, and I'm looking to expand and go into the light industrial area. What are the critical questions that person is going to want to know to convert their idea into reality and then make it successful so that it survives? Because the more conducive we can make the landscape at the approvals level, the more chance there will be that business can get up and running faster and hopefully have some fast fails if they need to actually ensure some longer term success. So customer journey mapping was vital because I would often come into these projects and we'd then say, okay, look, can you tell me what's your process for A, B, and C? So if I want to get a planning approval for a particular type of land use or activity, what's your process? Can you describe it to me? And then we'd say, okay, now that you've got that, there seems to be a level of general consensus among the team. Can you write that up on the board and let's start shifting pieces of the puzzle to make sure that what we draw or describe or document properly marries up with what actually occurs in the business every day. And the amount of friction that caused was immense because you would have staff saying, well, no, we don't do that. It's 35 days. No, it's not 10 days. Oh, no, that's wrong. Who put that step in there? So all we did was ask some questions, facilitate some conversations, and shine a light on the practice which drives the process. So that was really important as well. In doing so, you invariably stumble upon pain points and all of these pressures that business community as well as local government staff encounter. And it wasn't unfamiliar to always have the ED person as a bit of a lone voice saying, no, that's not true. That's not what I hear. You've drawn it like this as far as the practice or the process or the attitude and approach. But I can tell you right now from the 40 calls I had last week from many different businesses that is not what they feel or see. So we needed to shine a light on those, try and document them in a way that was very easy to interpret and digest. We're not interested in our business for any of the work that we do in producing kind of voluminous books that then just sit on a shelf that no one can use as a reference tool or an action plan to just roll their sleeves up and get into it. We want to obviously challenge the status quo, and that again caused a fair bit of friction because what we found is that invariably staff, particularly long-serving staff in an organisation, become very personally attached to and protective of practice and process that they've been raised on in that organisation. And so often these things become quite sacrosanct. And so it was a matter of kind of delicately breaking down those barriers to make sure that it was a safe space for staff to feel like they were being given license to actually push back on the status quo. Above all, it needed to be evidence-based because unless we could count the widgets and the metrics and put that in a business case and package it up in a way that people in Treasury who only have one interest in mind, they don't care about long-term impacts, they don't care about benefits, how many small businesses will this ultimately help? What they wanted to know is, what's our return on investment? If we give you X dollars, what is the benefit back to the state going to be in being able to either reduce your annual budget income for programs and other things, or to actually reduce longer term consequences and financial impacts on the state's budget. So it needed to be evidence-based. And lastly, it needed to be end-to-end. This was quite unique. So when we looked at different or similar approaches that had been taken in other jurisdictions, I think there was the Victorian small business model that was run back in around 2016, 2017, I think. We looked at that, and one of the things that occurred to us straight away about whether it was that process or other similar approaches taken by a local government or state governments across the country were that they regarded step one in the process of all of these things. They regarded step one as the customer coming to the front counter with an application form, go, here it is, thanks. So that's step one. Or they regarded step one as the planner or some other technical officer behind the scenes, sitting down at their computer, starting to do an assessment, to triage that application. Is it yes? Is it no? Is it maybe? What more do I have to do through that particular process? We started the journey mapping from a customer who's not yet a customer, someone who's got a business idea, who's perhaps not even a business operating there. They're probably an employee in another business. Do they know where to go, what to find, where to get help from your organisation? If they need to do that discreetly or covertly, can they do so? Because they might have other areas of their life that they don't want to expose the fact that, hey, I've got this great idea. I think I can do what my boss does, but just way better. Again, so we looked at the start of the process being months and months before you even first see that customer at your organisation. And the other end of that was when they're up and running and they've been operating for 5 or 10 years. So what other ongoing touch points or pain points does your local government generate for that business? Because if you're just going to be a constant kind of anchor or ball and chain around their leg throughout their business journey, then let's try and sever that chain in a way that actually gives them a little bit of freedom to perform. And lastly, these are critical questions that if ever you want to take anything away, these are the useful ones that always made me seem like the most stupid person in the room, because staff, we would talk through all these things, all these preceding points, we would start doing the process mapping, and then someone would ask a question to go, oh, is that actually right though? And then invariably another officer would go, oh yeah, absolutely, that's just how we do it. That's how we do it, because I'm the most senior, so that's how we do it, right? So we ask this, like, but what if we didn't do that? Would the sky fall? Is there going to be like the planning police going to come and arrest us for not doing this vital step in the process that seems to have just been invented? Because we were able to do a lot of comparison and contrasting with other local government experiences. And also, when we worked with Nairi and the team at Townsville, we took a very broad surveillance of all of the local government approval processes that are either mandated or flexible or kind of discretionary across your state to say, okay, look, let's inform ourselves. So, we did a kind of intensive short course in all approvals needed in Queensland to start or run a business, and that was grueling in itself. So just trying to absorb all of that knowledge. But it proved really useful, because then you can ask these things. You can say, yeah, but what if we didn't? Because you know what? Rockhampton doesn't do that. So why are you doing it? Or just in those 2 local governments that we ran the pilot project for in terms of Canning and Stirling, we could say, well, hang on, you've said that you run this process in this particular way. That's like either way better or way worse than the other comparator local government that was also being exposed to that pilot project. So often we would ask what if without worrying about how to, because often staff would just jump straight to that, like, oh yeah, but how's that going to happen? I don't know. Maybe I don't care. But at least be provocative and ask, well, how can we do X? The next question might be, what can we do? The next one, how to, but also these, why not, who said, and so what? So, no, we can't do that. Well, just we can't. We've never done that. This is, how many times has anyone in the room heard the phrase, that's just how we've always done it? And there's about a dozen equivalent phrases that you could always just reach into a grab bag and offer up as the answer to your question or to your problem. So why not, who said, and so what? I find those questions both provocative but also very purposeful when you're trying to kind of get some push through. So again, any questions, comments, discussions, please, as I said at the start, feel free to jump in at any point. These are 10 critical questions that our team, through all of our combined experiences working in and with local governments and approval processes within WA and elsewhere, I think are really, really important to understand, because if everyone in the room or if everyone in your team that provides a touch point to small business or customers generally can't consistently answer these questions that I'm going to run through, then you are ripe for some form of harmonisation or process or practice improvement, because above all of our interactions with small businesses have found that small businesses want certainty and consistency in information, decisions and advice. That's it. It's not much to us, just certainty and consistency. So we'll run through these. What approvals do I need? So here's Len, he's got a great small business idea. He rocks up to Mackay Council. Hi, I'm thinking about doing this. What approvals do I need? And the worst answer that anyone can possibly give in a local government to these 10 questions I'm about to show is, it depends. It depends. What does it depend? It's nothing answer. Imagine oh, hey, so did I get more than 50% in my maths exam? Well, it depends. Doesn't depend on anything. Just tell me, So again, what approvals do I need? What will you or won't you approve? Don't send me down a damn rabbit hole if you know secretly you're going to kill this idea off. I don't want to do business with you. I'll go to another local government. See if their rules are different. What do I need to do? What do you need from me? Can I draw my plan on the back of a napkin, which I'm sure everyone has seen one of those plans, once or more than once. What do I need to do? Are there fees? Is there a form? Where do I go? I don't know. Where do I start? So a lot of this is around kind of wayfinding and clarity. How much is it going to cost? Yeah, it depends. I don't know. Well, if we have to advertise it, then you have to you pick up the cost for that. If we've got to do X, then it's Y. If it goes to council, if this, then this. All that does is create uncertainty, confusion, and chaos in the minds of someone who's got a great idea. They've got a spark of excitement and they want to get that on ground and start making money and use that as their lifeline. And we just say, yeah, look, it depends. The other one is, how long will it take? If this, then this. Who will be consulted or involved? Well, again, refer to answer to any of the previous questions. Who's going to make the decision? Again, it depends. Maybe you've got delegated authority to make a decision. Maybe you don't, because your delegated authority only runs as far as kind of this particular scope. What are my chances? Oh, I don't know. Geez, mate, don't ask me that. I'm just here to help. Don't make my life difficult. I've got training starting at 6 o'clock. I don't know what your chances are. It depends how good your argument and your proposal is. So often, in defence of all local government personnel, often you're let down by the organisation's practice, processes, documentation, availability of information, and also digestibility of information. Because what we've found repeatedly, time and time again, is that every single local government that we've worked with, and we've run this project a lot of times, either through the Small Business Commission or we do it independently as a 6 to 10 week process. What we've repeatedly found is that all of the information, the answers to these questions exist somewhere. They exist somewhere, either in someone's mind or in a procedure that was written in the 80s, or buried deep, really deep. So buried deep for about 20 clicks on your website that no one, rest assured, no one will ever find, let alone staff. So again, it's about kind of raking through all of the knowledge base and trying to put all of the nuggets on the table and go, right, well, here's everything we need to assemble in a more digestible form. Where can I get more information? And my favourite is, will I get a different answer if I ask someone else? Maybe. Again, well, it depends. It depends who someone else is. Don't go and ask the gardener because they're not going to give you an answer. Maybe if you ask the mayor or the CEO, they can give you a different answer. But again, what kind of confidence does that give when you've got this great business idea and you're thinking about putting your house and your family and your livelihood and everything you've worked for on the line to make this a reality? So in that background, God, what a rant, sorry. What we found very deliberately, what we did was create discomfort and delight, because we would go in, we would agitate, we would ask all these difficult questions, we would force people to say, give me the answer to these 10 questions. And if you can't, then you're broken. Because it wasn't about saying anything was broken or that things were no good. It was simply saying, yes, but can you do better? Like, can we do better for the customer? Can we do better for ourselves? A lot of the work that we focus on is not resource hungry. And it's not saying, oh God, some guy like me who's come in and all I'm seeing when I look at this stuff is more work for me. This is just more work on top of my work. Now you're asking me to do more work. And then, invariably the officer, kind of gets into this real kind of lull of like hating their organisation and hating me or us. And they go, I can't believe, we've told them so many times we're understaffed, our workload is too high, and now they wheel this out? Why are they not listening? So we very deliberately framed it in a way to say, look, this is actually going to alleviate the workload pressures done right. We're not asking you to do more. We're asking you to do what you do a little bit differently in a way that hopefully is a lighter touch for you, not a heavier touch. So ultimately what happens is, and this will be the same, every single one of you, I'm sure, will have an experience to recount where someone in your organisation, when you're having a bit of an arm wrestle on behalf of a small business customer or for process improvement or improving kind of culture or attitudes or whatever the case is, invariably you're going to have some people go, yeah, look, that's actually a great idea. I think we can do that. And other people just go, just gently kind of slink back into the shadows and go, look, that makes me very uncomfortable. Or they'll just give a computer says no approach and they'll just take a hard line and push back really, really hard to say, no, we can't. We can't and I won't. And this is me. So you can keep talking to me because I just don't care and I'm not participating anymore. The biggest eye-opener to me when we ran the pilot project, and to a lesser extent when we did similar things in other local governments, is the degree of emotion that comes to the fore when you start having these conversations about, okay, let's shine a light on how good we are and if we can do better. And is this really as good as it gets? It's not to be taken as a personal criticism or an insult of the performance and the level of care and empathy shown by this organisation or by this particular team. But let's be really honest. In every case, and this is 100% of circumstance, usually by about day 3, we have storm outs, we have tears, we have yelling, often at me and then at peers. It is an emotional roller coaster that you really need to be prepared, but it's worth the ride because when you get through that kind of forming and storming process, you get to the other end and you get everyone to a point of consistency and understanding that, okay, it's not about me. It's not like I've done something wrong, so I've been targeted to be drawn into and involved in this project team. That's not what this is. Attitude overcomes adversity. I'm a big naysayer. I shouldn't proclaim this. Sorry, that's terrible for me and for business. I'm not a big fan of like business excellence processes, like, oh, we've got ISO certification, we've got this, we've got that. I know plenty of other colleague local government CEOs and state government departmental heads who really subscribe to that stuff. It's like, we want to see everything documented up to our eyeballs every single day. My argument to them is always, oh, that's excellent because now you do bad things consistently. Whereas all of my experience tells me, and this has been repeated over and over again through these types of programs with local government, and Townsville was absolutely no different, is saying, look, all the best processes in the world however heavily documented and automated they might be, count for nothing if the interpersonal experience, of a particular transactional touch point is garbage, because nothing else matters. Equally, you can have the worst processes and experience. They can be antiquated and bureaucratic and painful. But if you've got an officer on your side, on the other side of the desk, who's championing your cause, who just gives you a bit of peace of mind and a bit of assurance that, you know what, go home and sleep tonight, we got this. That's priceless. That is absolutely priceless. So to have someone who can offer a kind of concierge approach, who can support you through that journey to go, no, it's okay, I'll do this, you do this. If you give me A, B, and C, then I can do X, Y, and Z. So let's work together. If you've got that kind of partnership attitude, you will overcome all of your rubbish processes or practices or all of the pain points that you've observed in conversations with customers. It's been really, really important to stress this through the pilot project that we did, and every time, again, something similar happens with a local government client. Don't just be a passenger on the bus. This is not about us kind of rolling into town and going, jump on board, we did this before, here's all the things. We kind of pre-populated an action plan, I just need you to tick this off and get into it. That fails. That is absolutely going to fail. If you don't have high-level support subscribing to this program and giving staff license to be more creative and to be a bit more provocative than what they would ordinarily do in their day-to-day, then it's just not going to succeed. So it does need this kind of council executive mandate. It was great. Townsville had that. Other local governments that we've worked with have had it. But to me, it was very predictable, and is no coincidence today that the ones who kind of gave up along the way, they started with this big burst of gusto and excitement, but then it just kind of, it drifts away like, lemonade on a summer day that's, your kids have left the cat on. That's what you're left with. So what we found is, if you don't have the commitment to it at a high level, then you're just not going to get longevity in those results. Again, Townsville, for them, it went to council. There was regular reporting to council. The deputy there was the project champion for that, working closely with the CEO and the chief planner and Nairi and the team. So it had a very high level of visibility and priority afforded to it. And as a consequence, staff feel more invested in making the changes to basically prove something to the higher ups. Also, all customers benefit. Whilst the focus of these types of improvements might have been on making life easier for small business to do business with us, everyone wins. Because guess what? Your process for small business is not necessarily any different from me wanting to put up a carport or a garage or to start a playgroup or a childcare centre or something. So whether it's a business customer or not a business customer, there's no gateway that local governments apply to go, oh, hang on, we give you if you're a business customer, come over here. We've got a platinum level service over here. If you're everyone else, just join the queue. That's not how it works. So ultimately, any improvements that were manifest in your process or policies or even your organisational structure, then just benefit all of your customers. And lastly, it built, I deliberately didn't say capacity, because it doesn't give you more capacity. It's not like we just keep blowing the balloon up until it's got more and more volume. There's no improvement necessarily in capacity, but what it did do is it built capability. And by that, I mean that we were able to provide I'm not saying this to be kind of arrogant or anything, but it provided a bit of a learning experience for staff to apply their knowledge and their ideas and their minds in a way that they don't ordinarily get to exercise in their day-to-day jobs. So they learned how to forensically pull apart a process. They learned where you can look for kind of pain points. They understood that, okay, well, we're going to be interacting with customers. And so they realised that through all of this process, it's okay to just go, yeah, but how does this impact you? Ask that question. I should have said, but I didn't so far, that all of the projects that we've run, again, Townsville was no different, we're heavily involving the customer through that process. Through the two WA pilot projects, we deliberately had the project team, so the staff from within the organisation, and then we bring in the customers. Wow, how do you reckon that went? That was exciting, speaker fish. But ultimately, we had a couple of customers basically breaking down. And they, these guys had put their houses on the line. There was one in particular, these kind of two schoolmates had been working in corporate jobs for a long time, put everything on the line. And I mean everything. To start to pursue this idea of like, I reckon we could really make a go of having a craft brewery. That was a few years ago, so maybe they were a bit ahead of the curve then, but they knew nothing about beer making, hospitality, or anything else. They just loved the product, and all they wanted to do as a job to consume. So they wanted to turn their passion into a business idea. But everyone was stepping on the hose. At every turn, they were just getting blockages. So we brought them in after they finally settled in. Their business was running very successfully. Everything was great. All the dust had settled, the wounds had healed over, and it was fine. It was a safe space for them to come back in and share their experience after the fact. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. Usually the transaction will end with your organisation and the customer once you issue them a decision, or you provide advice, or you hang up the phone, or you click send on the email, whatever it is. So we wanted to make sure that staff who participated in the program gathered some useful learnings and experiences and observations that they could then deploy elsewhere in their day-to-day operations. And what we found, really interestingly, is as a consequence of doing so, some of the staff who might have been purely in an ED role, or purely in a planning role, or health or plumbing or whatever it was, eventually kind of percolated into other parts of the organisation. And so if they had a touch point with the engineers or something, they'd go, oh, I've just noticed that this happens over here. Do you want, I think you could probably make life a bit easier. So they were then bleeding out these types of conversations and theories and ideas through the rest of their organisation, which became really useful. And lastly, in every instance, if I had to choose 4 words that sum up how you could group or categorise all of the actions that were identified through all these various processes, it's this: speed, service, simplicity, and self-help. The last one's often overlooked because customers are going, no, I don't need you to hold my hand all the time. Just make it easy for me to discover what I want to discover, because guess what? Often, when I do eventually get 2 minutes of time to, and I'm not on the tools or working with clients or trying to make a living, the only time I've got is about between kind of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. During the night. So you're not there. I just need to be able to help myself to the information, but know I can rely on it. And the others are self-explanatory. Faster, simpler, this kind of is better. So we're basically focusing on improving the level of consideration that's applied to those customer interactions. How it went? Well, I mean, obviously, I reckon it went amazingly. A lot is to do with the consultants that did it. So through the pilot project, we framed our outcomes report for our small business commissioner in a way that was directly manipulatable into a Treasury business case document. So we did that deliberately. We said, look, from the outset, show us all the things that Treasury is going to want you to prove if they're going to throw any more cash your way. Give us that information and we'll document this up in a way that you can just plug and play home. As a consequence of the pilot project, the SBDC was very successful in attracting $2.2 million worth of Treasury funding to deliver that program through itself, partnering with us and a whole team of other consultants on a panel that they had appointed to run that program across 20 local governments between January 21 and April 23. I think about a couple of months ago, the Small Business Development Corporation in WA also was successful in winning an award for the level of local government and business customer engagement for delivering that program. So that was really a kind of a resounding milestone for them. So yeah, it did get received really well, and it got received really well by people who usually didn't care about impacts on business customers, and that might include people who come from a Treasury or a Department of Finance background. So SBDC, as I'm sure the Small Business Commissioner here, is only as well resourced as the resources and funds that are allocated to it by government. So in this instance, we needed to prove that that body of evidence to say, look, this is a good investment. This is why you should invest in this. I think the return on investment from the pilot project, I'll run through a little bit of an explanation of it in a moment, was something like we scaled it and SBDC had it economically calculated. It was something like for every $1 that they spent on us or through the project, through other consultants or otherwise, would generate about $37 return for the business sector. Entirely. So again, the return on investment spoke volumes there. It reduced processing time. So this was an average as well. I know that Townsville, Stirling, Canning and others that we've worked with, where they've taken the steps to implement the actions that were identified and agreed, they absolutely could point to the scoreboard and go, wow, check it out. Look how much better we are now. In the biggest local government, Stirling, that we ran the pilot project for, they then continued to engage us over the subsequent couple of years to say, okay, now we want you to help us implement the actions that have been identified. There was about 30 of. They said, oh, also we're going through a website review. So we want you to kind of bench test that, and we want you to make sure that it's all in plain English, that it's easily understandable, that things are in a logical place. So we help them with their website. They've now developed through that project a fantastic tool that allows you to click on any property. There's a drop-down box that tells you, okay, what do you want to do? And it's all plain English. Yeah, where's the property? What's your idea? What approvals do you need? And it spits out a pro forma report that they rely on because it's accurate. And we work with them to test all of the intricacies of it to make sure that the customer could generate that kind of report for themselves that produces all of the answers after hours with no impact on the city. Now you can imagine something like that took a fair bit of bench strength to build in the first place, but once it was done, all of the pain just kind of drifted away because it really did. And then lastly, once they had finished implementing all of the actions that were identified through their pilot project and some more that they added themselves, which was very commendable, they then got us back into very independently and critically assess and test, did they do what they said they were going to do? So the accountants say, well, they said they were going to do X and Y. We don't have visibility over that stuff in the back end. So we want you to go and test and check, has it happened? Has it had the results that are being reported to us? I'm sending out, I think it was over 1,000 surveys to every single business customer that had any interaction of any description with the city over the preceding 12-month period. And the results were night and day, absolutely night and day. Some of these customers were repeat customers as well. And they specifically referenced how dramatically different and better things were now post-implementation compared to their previous experiences. So again, I think kudos to anyone who sticks with it. All I could say is just kind of trust in the process. And it did reduce processing times, and it saved, on average, per each of those small business applicants, it would have saved them anywhere from around kind of $11,000 to $20,000 per application process. Because when we added the time value of their, or the financial value of their time and all of their upfront costs that they needed to kind of part with, there was some very, very significant benefits to it. And lastly, as I said in some of those cases, it did enhance organisational effectiveness, performance, and customer satisfaction. Just kind of went through the roof, which everyone loves, especially if it's a local government election year or the CEO's got a KPI report to put to council. This is great to go, oh, well, and, look at the scorecard. This is looking fantastic for us. It is transferable. I'm not going to talk about a great deal of this because that's Nairee's job for tomorrow. So stay tuned and show up to Nairee's presentation. It's going to be amazing. This is simply to say, look, all of these experiences and ideas, it's not rocket science. This is just about common sense and just thinking, okay, look, how can we make stuff better? I think there's a great saying that I like. Henry Ford said, if I'd asked the people what they want, I would have given them a fast horse. So sometimes it's about identifying a need that doesn't exist. Everything seems very, very consistent and familiar, but can you shake that up and is it as good as it gets? So we applied all of these ideas, working with the team at Townsville. We did customer journey mapping of these 4 items. So we had to start from scratch because I can assure you, your statutory processes are vastly different from ours in Western Australia. So So we had to learn all of this stuff, all the rules and the regs and the legislation and the guidelines. My gosh, there's a lot of guidelines that exist there. To identify very precisely what must you do, what can you choose to not do. We made sure that we gathered both quantitative and qualitative data about the process and the customer experience. Surveys were sent to 500 applicants over a period. We had about 12 hours of customer workshops over a fairly intense week. We also had more than 20 hours of grueling officer workshops where we kind of unpacked each of these 8 processes. That's what one of the very kind of simplistic process maps look like, and we deliberately made it very simple. I've got a strong hatred for typical process maps that show kind of, oh no, an arrowed box means this, and a round box means this, and an oval shaped box means something else. I find it looks very confusing to interpret quickly. This is just showing a workflow more than a process. It's saying when we have discretion, and then we put this up on the screen, and then we work with staff to go, okay, what about this? Can we do better? Can we do better? Can we do better? At every one of these steps. So in a single at-a-glance page, you've got not only your workflow, that you can then strip all of these things off and give that workflow to customers, which answers a lot of those 10 questions. What do you do? How do you do it? What's the time frame taken? Oh, here it is. And this is just a kind of choose your own adventure. Very easy to understand, even if you don't know all of the background of the legislation and the requirements. You don't need to know them. In the same way that if I'm applying to a bank, I don't have to know all the credit laws that it's subjected to. I don't have to know what their internal processes are. I just need to know what I have to do to get the outcome I'm looking for. So this proved incredibly worthwhile for staff because then they had lines in the sand to go, oh, okay, right. So as a consensus position, we now all agree this is how we do stuff. And that was different, from some points of view that were expressed earlier in the process. And as I said, at a glance, we've got not only the workflow and the process, but we've also got the ideas for improvement down this column. And that was multiplied for each of those 8 customer journeys. So now I'm going to just quickly see if anyone has any comments or discussion that you'd like to share. Is there any of these things so far that you've experienced through all of the work and the careers that you've enjoyed? Luke, you've got something to say.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at reflecting on those questions and the responses you got from the public service. I'm an EHO by background, and always challenge the status quo, ever being streamlined. And every time it was like, but that's how we've always done it. Yeah, but this is the way we do it. But why?
Yes.
And when you ask the question, no one can ever answer it.
No.
So pushing people back to first principles, like what are we actually required to do for that thing?
Yeah.
And almost chuck out your current policy, don't even try to change it. Just start again with what are we here to do, and nice clean process from there.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I was just going to say, and on that, through our conversations in our organisation and trying to, break down the no's, we found that saying when you get the no, that's how we've always done it, saying yes, and if we were to look at it in another way, so that saying yes, they're not feeling like you've just dismissed them. It's like, yes, sort of heard that. And can we look at it in a different way? We found that worked well, sort of keeping them on side and not like sort of saying, yes, you may have done that for all these years. And I'm, here's this person swanning in and saying, what you've been doing is shit, we're going to do it better, which is what you're thinking. But you're sort of going, yes, and.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. But also just to highlight a bit of a deliberate choice of words, I'm sure. There's a difference between saying yes and imagine or what if, or how to, versus but. My youngest daughter gives me the buts all the time. Like, can we do this? No. But if we do this, then it's. I think there is a real skill in framing it in a way that gets you the most amount of traction. And I like what you said about yes and yes, I understand that. And if we kind of did some fine tuning and a bit of nicking and tucking, then maybe the experience would be better.
Yeah.
But anyone else? Feedback? Ideas? It's a safe space to share. Please share. Yes.
The point that I was going to raise is just providing that space to try things different and to create that innovation safety for people to to do that. I think it's just an observation of mine that I think it's critically important.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I'm just going to run through now a couple of kind of hints, tips, tricks, things that we've kind of discovered along the way, and I've tried to compress them down into a single image. I won't sit here all day while you try and guess what I'm trying to guess through each of these messages. But the first one is this. Is anyone old enough to remember MacGyver? Please. Yeah. All right. That's the spirit. This is the MacGyver multi-tool. This was a tool actually on sale. It's a paper. It says down here, a paper bit can be a wondrous thing. More times than I can remember, one of these has gotten me out of a tight spot. The point I'm making here, or trying to illustrate, is you don't need a lot of resources to be resourceful. MacGyver never did. Like, you could build a house with a fishing rod and a paper clip, yeah. But in all seriousness, you just don't. It's a complete earthy, in my opinion, and never accept an argument where someone says, "Oh yeah, but I need more staff for that." Hey, you don't need more staff. You might need more staff if you can prove beyond any doubt that you are operating at the optimal level of efficiency and performance, and there's nothing left in the tank. There's no more shadows in your corridors. Everything is brightly lit. There's nothing left. If you're already at the point of perfection, then yes, I agree. Doing more might require more resources. But you don't see football teams or rugby teams or other teams winning sport because they got more players on the field. It's not like think about the lunacy of that. It's not. It's not about more resources. If you feel like you're under-resourced and overworked, then find ways to better manage your workload. And I'm not saying that from a kind of preaching viewpoint. I'm saying it from a personal experience viewpoint, having spent kind of almost 30 years in the trenches, in local government, overwhelmed with kind of work and customer and council and exec demands and others. And then eventually becoming the person that was imposing those demands on others. The next one is this. This is my personal favourite. Sometimes the biggest and best contribution that local government or government generally can make is to just get out of the way. Just get out of the way. You don't need to go touching everything. Maybe no one even watch things. But again, like just look at whether you need to be in this thing, process, approval, program, whatever it is. Look at whether you actually need to be here. There's a difference between need and have and want. If there is a genuine statutory obligation for you to participate, then participate to that extent. And otherwise, if you're not adding value, get off the hose and get out the way. That brings me to this. It's a bear. It's a small bear. The bare minimum. It's been a lovely audience. Honestly, the bare minimum. Yeah, this freaks people out. You know, from a risk management and a risk aversion people, they go, "Whoa, hang on, whoa." So, just so I'm clear, you're saying I should do none of what the law requires of me, and we're saying no. Do only what the law requires of you. Not all of these add-ons, because if I objectively stand back and I look at everything that you've done to this process and I compare it starkly against the law and the regulation and the guidelines and what your true obligations are, it looks like you built the Homomobile. Now, I don't know if anyone's seen that episode of The Simpsons, but yeah, if you kind of throw in all of these ideas and you attach them to a car or a process, you get a Frankenstein's monster that often doesn't resemble the true kind of purpose and obligation that exists at law. So what we always advocate for is, that's fine, just do the bare minimum. Do the lightest touch possible, because you'll find in doing so, actually reduces your workload. It decomplicates your life when you come into the office or the business every day. This one here, small hinges swing big doors, because the smallest little 1%ers might seem inconsequential, but they actually matter. They really do. Yeah, because you might have an insurmountable issue and you make a small change that then creates a watershed moment for all of the other kind of changes and improvements to flow thereafter. This last one picks up perfectly on the point that was raised earlier. Be brave. Get it? This is brave. Okay. Disney, anyone with me?
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, great movie. But But be brave, be courageous. Give staff and your organisation and your teams license to be very creative with what they do. Be brave, experiment. By all means, experiment. And look, but also there's a real kind of organisational kind of cultural obstacle that you need to overcome in how you view and respond to mistakes. Understand that mistakes will happen, and that's okay, because what you just need to do is try and learn from them. And particularly, making mistakes is safe when you badge it up front as an experiment or a trial. Then it's okay. It's like, oh, it's safe. I can fail as much as I want because I've said that, we're going to try this out. This is just a bit of experimentation for us here. It's really, really important, because if you don't give yourselves and staff and others license to exercise that level of creativity and courageousness, then you're not going to get the best possible kind of ideas coming forward to try and improve things for customers. And now for some shame, oh, geez, sorry, I thought I left these slides out. Or did I? Just to let you know, we are free qualified suppliers on the local panel. Love coming to Queensland. Hook me up, we'd love to come back to you at any point in time to do pretty much anything that can remotely be covered by business management and consulting services and planning, surveying, design and architecture. But we don't profess to be the last three: surveying, design and architecture. And that is it. I'd love to have any
Any questions of Len? Ken's not here anymore.
And Susan only appears on Saturday nights. Few drinks.
You can tell us more about that.
Yeah. Yes, I'm saving that for tonight's cabaret.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Wow, what a way to wrap up the day, hey? Yeah, certainly provocative and challenging. And I think ripping the Band-Aid off a few home truths, everyone in the room probably knew. But yeah, always keen to hear it spoken out loud. Lots of challenges for us in that one. Few key takeaways for me. Yeah, know your current state and challenge the status quo. Don't accept it. More often than not, a lot of the conversations I've had with a lot of you over the years has been, so why do you do that? Why do you have that process in place? Have you actually thought about getting rid of it or spoken to so-and-so because they just got rid of that 3 months ago? So have those conversations, ask early. I loved your critical questions as well. Whole long list there I won't repeat, but yeah, certainly challenging the assumptions behind a lot of what we do. And I think that comes down to, for a lot of government, it's about drift. So I think it started years and years ago as A, and then, Sarah came in and Sarah made it A and a bit. And then Billy took over from Sarah and he made it D. And now we're at Z, triple Z. And everyone's forgotten that it's actually A that we're here to do. And peeling all that away, you find, oh, okay, yeah, well, we're only meant to do that one thing, but now we do 60 things. And in all that time, people have just gone like that, thinking about what they need to do. And no one's actually ever circled back and asked the customer, do you want triple Z? No, I just want A. Oh. And then it's this epiphany moment where we suddenly try to clean it all up. Yeah, we always get that answer, this is more work. Every time you challenge the status quo, people, I don't have time. Yeah, well, okay, trying to give you more time back. And that's the whole point of tomorrow, shameless plug. How do we leverage digitization and AI and all these wonderful whiz-bang fancy new things? How do we leverage that to actually make life simpler, to give you time back to be on the ground, to get out of the office, to have those conversations? Because that's where the gold is. That's where you'll make genuine change. Because all these businesses that are trying to do business in your communities, they're all the ones with the ideas on how you can do it better. It's usually not your teams, unless you've got some whiz-bang unicorn graduate who's like ducks to everything. And oftentimes they'll be told to get in their hole because they're just a graduate. What do they know? Well, I just finished the current training, So ask those questions, challenge your own staff to do better. And I think the biggest takeaway too for me, aside from just remembering that it's all about drift and how we can get back, is I did love that small hinges swing big doors.
And it's often that bare minimum, that little process you can do that actually will make a big difference to businesses. And time and again, we talk to small businesses and they say to us, you know, they just want to know what they need to do now. So they've got certainty, they can get on with it and get it done. They don't want to have those 50,000 other different conversations and go to the 18 websites you've referred them to. But I just want an answer now. And one of those roadblocks I always hear about is the fee to have a meeting with a planning team to actually talk about what the rules are. Like what? And when I ask councils why they do it, aside from being a great earner at the moment, they all say, oh, well, it's to stop the frivolous people who just have an idea and come knocking. I'm like, hang on, public service. You know, and it's getting back to that. Well, what are you actually here to do? You're not here to stop people developing or planning or building a business. You're just here to guide that in a way that the community has agreed on is acceptable, the town plan, right? But you're not meant to be stopping people. You're not a roadblock. You're a guidance process for a standard that community's agreed to. So how do you guide people through that in a more efficient way? So yeah, Len, thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming from Western Australia to be here in person. Did have an option to do it online, but you really appreciate you taking the time to come here. Ranting is welcome. Thank you. But yeah, thank you. And at that, enough hearing from me and other people today. Thank you very much for coming to our community practice workshop day. Really hope you've got a lot out of it today. I've learned a lot as well, and certainly be taking stuff back to challenge my team and to challenge our processes and practices too. But yeah, please continue the conversations. Hopefully you've got some time to go and have a bit of a refresh, swim or whatever, and we'll see you hopefully all at the reception at 5 p.m. It's in the bar, Roco Bar, Sharon? Roco Bar. So this the Bluey Tower just outside, Roco Bar, 5 p.m. Love to see you there. Have a great afternoon.